Welcome to your favorite movie channel. Sit tight and enjoy this beautiful story. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Our story begins with a beautiful lady waking up to realize she might be late for her first day at work. She asks her house help to prepare her bath and instructs her to notify the driver that they'll be leaving soon, as she cannot afford to be late on her first day. Meanwhile, at the office, Evelyn asks Matilda and Mark why they've been coming to the office together recently and implies they might be sleeping together. Matilda quickly responds that they are just best friends and even mentions that Mark knows her boyfriend. Matilda rushes off to meet Miss Omoyemi Johnson and introduces herself as Miss Johnson's personal assistant. However, Miss Johnson warns her against being too familiar with her. Before Matilda can respond, Miss Johnson instructs her to inform the rest of the staff about an upcoming meeting. Matilda returns to the office and informs the staff that the new managing director has arrived and has called for a meeting. The staff gossip about how rude and no-nonsense the new boss is before heading to the meeting. At the meeting, Miss Omoyemi Johnson introduces herself and lays down her rules for the staff. A few minutes into the meeting, Mr. Emo is seen arguing with a bike man over his change. The bike man drives off, and Emo rushes to the office. The cleaner informs him that the staff are in a meeting with the new managing director. Emo hurries to the meeting, where Miss Johnson asks who he is. He introduces himself as the head of IT. Miss Johnson sternly states that she will not condone lateness and will punish it accordingly. The staff return to the office and discuss how rude and spoiled the new boss is. Evelyn teases Mr. Emo, asking if he thinks being late to work is something to be proud of. While the workers are sending the cleaners to get some food, Tunde borrows money from his desk mate and promises to repay it when he receives his salary. Mark interrupts and reminds Tunde that he still owes him money, even though he's been paid 3 times since then. Evelyn jokes, asking if Tunde's debts now exceed his salary. Tunde retorts that her debts would be even higher than her salary. Meanwhile, Miss Johnson calls Mr. Badmos, the accountant, to her office to address discrepancies in the company's accounts. Mr. Badmos tries to explain, but Miss Johnson accuses him of incompetence, pointing out that money is missing from the company and he cannot account for it. Later, Miss Johnson talks to her father on the phone and complains about the staff. Her father advises her to be more accommodating and give people room to improve. She tells her father she doesn't trust Mr. Badmos, but he reassures her that Mr. Badmos is trustworthy and the issue might just be a minor mistake. At the office, the staff note Emo's absence. Tunde mentions seeing him on his way to work and jokes that no one would believe they work at the same place. Mark suggests Matilda should say Emo called in sick, but Evelyn disapproves, saying it would be dishonest. In Miss Johnson's office, Matilda informs her that Emo called in sick. When Miss Johnson asks who he contacted, Matilda replies that he called Jane, the head of social media, who then passed the message to her. Miss Johnson criticizes Matilda, stating she can't seem to do anything right. Emo eventually arrives at the office, and the staff warn him that the boss has been looking for him. He then goes to her office to find out why she needed him. Miss Johnson tells him the only reason she hasn't fired him is because he's excellent at his job. On their way home from work, Evelyn and Tunde discuss how rude their boss is. Evelyn also mentions seeing Mr. Badmos leaving Miss Johnson's office in a hurry. Matilda bitterly complains about how the new boss, Miss Johnson, always finds fault in everything she does and blames her for other workers' mistakes. Her best friend Mark consoles her. When salaries are paid, Emo realizes his salary isn't complete. Confused, he goes to the head accountant, Mr. Badmos, who informs him that it was on Miss Johnson's orders. Emo confronts Miss Johnson, and she explains that it was a penalty for his consistent lateness to work. Meanwhile, the cleaner, Iya Taiwo, is restless at work because her son is sick. Exhausted, she falls asleep on duty. Miss Johnson finds her sleeping and reacts furiously. Although the cleaner tries to explain, Miss Johnson dismisses her explanation, saying personal problems should not interfere with work. Could Miss Johnson really be this mean? The staff gossip among themselves. Meanwhile, Miss Johnson receives a call from her father, who sends her on an errand. She tries to make excuses, but he insists she follow through. Later, she calls Mr. Badmos to inform him that the accounts still aren't balancing. Iya Taiwo gets locked out of her house and secretly starts sleeping in the office. Evelyn discovers this and informs the other staff. Soon after, Mr. Badmos is arrested on Miss Johnson's orders. Later, Miss Johnson realizes some money is missing, and none of the staff admit to taking it. Evelyn mentions that the cleaner has been sleeping in the office. Miss Johnson calls for the cleaner, who denies taking the money and explains her situation. However, Miss Johnson accuses her of theft and fires her on the spot. Imo and Chunde try to reason with her, but she refuses to listen and proceeds to fire all the staff. The staff blame Imo and Tunde for getting everyone fired. Could Miss Johnson really be that horrible? Miss Johnson later discovers she is not her father's biological daughter. Distraught, she calls her brother, who advises her to stay calm, and reveals that their father likely found out their mother had an affair. The next day, Miss Johnson finds the missing money in her handbag. Regretful, she calls the staff to apologize and asks for the cleaner, only to learn that her son's illness worsened, prompting her to take him to Ibadan for traditional treatment. Evelyn reveals to the staff that she discovered Miss Johnson isn't the biological daughter of the boss. She learned this from the receptionist, who had seen the DNA test results. Miss Johnson returns home to find her house locked and her house help waiting outside. The house help explains that 3 men came and locked the house. She had tried calling Miss Johnson, but her phone was busy. When Miss Johnson goes to the supermarket, both of her bank cards are declined. She later learns that her accounts have been restricted. Frustrated, she sends her house help to stay with her sister temporarily. She then calls her father, who explains that someone is tampering with the accounts and setting him up for fraud. Miss Johnson confides in the staff about her predicament, telling them she may not be able to pay them anymore and that they are free to leave if they wish. Later, Imo visits her office and assures her that he won't be leaving the company, as he doesn't abandon ship when things get tough. Imo and Miss Johnson share a lighthearted conversation about her current living situation. She confides that she has been staying in the office. Concerned, Imo offers her a place at his house, but she politely declines. The next day, Evelyn tells Tunde that their boss has been sleeping at the office, fueling more gossip among the staff. Later, Imo helps Miss Johnson troubleshoot an issue with her laptop. After resolving the problem, they decide to step out and grab something to eat together. Upon their return, they revisit the laptop, and the site they were working on finally opens. Overwhelmed with excitement, Miss Johnson hugs Imo. In the heat of the moment, the hug turns into a kiss. Wow, could this be a love story unfolding? Miss Johnson's father calls and tells her he is proud of her. But wait, a new guy, Toby, shows up. They hug, and he kisses her. What could this mean? Miss Johnson talks about what has happened since they last saw each other. She even tells him about the crisis she faced. They embrace and leave the office together. Evelyn sees this and rushes to tell the other staff. Imo, looking displeased and sad, goes to Miss Johnson's office. She thanks him for his help during her crisis, but he leaves angrily. It seems Imo has been absent for 2 days. Miss Johnson asks Evelyn about his absence, and Evelyn says he's working from home. After Miss Johnson leaves, Evelyn tells Tunde she suspects Imo's absence is because of their boss, but Tunde disagrees. Imo eventually returns to the office with his resignation letter. He confronts Miss Johnson and admits he knows about her boyfriend, Toby. He asks her where Toby was when she was facing her crisis, pointing out that he, Imo, was the one who stood by her when no one else did. He also asks her if their kiss meant anything to her. Miss Johnson explains that Toby is her ex, and they were just catching up. However, Imo protests about how close she and Toby appeared. Miss Johnson claims she was waiting for Imo to make his feelings clear, as she wasn't sure what to think at the time. She admits that she cares about him. Imo then confesses that he's in love with her, and she tells him she feels the same way. They share a kiss. Matilda catches them kissing and informs the other staff. Evelyn smugly says this confirms her suspicions. Meanwhile, Imo and Miss Johnson begin spending more time together. Wow, what an interesting movie. Remember to follow our channel for more exciting stories. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more interesting and educational stories like this. See you in our next movie.